Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. What's up, Holmes?
So we're back. Thank you, everyone,
so, yeah.
for putting up with our technical issues. Yes, I think so. We'll see. We'll talk like we are. Tyrone, you were just explaining why you put Cave Story on the eShop instead of leaving it as it was on DSiWare, which was a great version, by the way, the DSiWare version. I thought it was very competent. But you went the extra mile and put it on 3DS eShop with new content, new display, and why did you do that?
I thought it looked like shit on the 3DS, so
On DSiWare? Oh, you
yeah,
mean
the DSiWare
version?
Yeah, it's like you get the bilinear filtering. So quote goes from 16 by 6 perfect 16 by 16 to 20 by 20, but he's filtered, so he's all blurry, and then there's borders. The bottom screen isn't used. It's not native to the 3DS, and it was bothering me. It was driving me crazy. So I talked internally with our team, my brother, one of the programmers, and hey, let's do this on 3DS, regardless if people buy it or not, because it'll be a better representation of the game. And we just decided to go all out with it. We actually got some help from another programmer friend of ours, and we made a multiple layering level editor, where originally Cave Story actually only had 2 levels, basically, more or less, for the level editor. Now it had multiple levels, so we could add all that crazy little detail when we made it stereoscopic. But I guess to make the answer short, we put it on there because downloading the DSi one on the 3DS was not complementary to Cave Story or the type of game we wanted. So we were able to make it widescreen. We were able to add stereoscopics. We were able to add all of the almost all of the bonus content from Cave Story Plus, which mainly includes all the levels, and then we kept in the music box from the DSiWare version.
Yeah, and that way it is, for certain people, it's the one I recommend out of all of them. That's saying a lot, because Cave Story Plus is such a huge package and such a great way to play the game. But in some ways it's a little, some ways you outdid yourself. But I quickly found myself defending the eShop version to people whose first instinct was, oh, he's just trying to sell the same game again. And to me, conventional logic dictates, like, if you were looking for money, you wouldn't sell a product that's already on the 3DS in a couple of different ways. Yeah, it was like the opposite. It was a lot of work, basically, for love of the product, and not because you thought, oh, I know what people have a need for is Cave Story on the 3DS, because you already put it out at retail and you already put it on DSiWare. How's the reception been to the eShop version thus far?
People have been pretty happy, I think, aside from a few people complaining that, hey, I bought it already on DSi, you're making me buy it again. We're actually not making you buy it again. You don't have to buy it. I just had to buy it. But generally, really high. The reviews have been pretty favorable. Yeah, I think the fan reaction, the people who really want Cave Story, they understand why we did it, and the ones that are slightly removed from it are the ones complaining that they think we're milking the game and that we're trying to make people double up on the game, but we're actually not. So.
Yeah, you didn't force anyone to. And the DSiWare version is still available on the DSi shop, is it?
Yes, you can still. If you have a DSi, you can still get that same native experience. So the DSi one's 256 by 192 in resolution. So we actually had to crop the viewport, but it's still really fun. It's very native to the DSi. It feels right. And then the 3DS one, you get the 420 by 240. And because of Cave Story, the bonus side effect for players is that, and I think we're the only developer publisher doing this, is for Ikachan, we're actually making 2 versions. If you have a DSi, you get the DSi version. If you have a 3DS, you get the stereoscopic 3DS version with the widescreen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So do you get both games downloaded when you purchase it, or does it automatically know?
It'll automatically know. So if you're on a 3DS, you can only download the stereoscopic one. I think I have a... Hold on, I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. Sure. This Tyrone guy, he's wild. While you were away, he showed me he has 4 3DSs on his person at the moment.
I think I have it. So, all right, let me see.
Which 3DS is this?
This is a DSi XL for old people.
Oh, okay. So how many DS consoles of some nature do you have in your immediate vicinity at the moment?
Right now on my desk there's about 7, I think.
That's something I wanted to ask. Why is it that you are so drawn to the DS platform, whereas a lot of people, you are putting stuff out on other platforms as well, but it seems like the DS is really where you're the most comfortable at the moment. Is that right? Or
It's pretty conducive to the types of games we've been working on, and also it's Nintendo's treated us well, but whatever they did wrong with WiiWare, perception-wise or sales, marketplace-wise, they really fixed on the 3DS. So it's been a good system for us, and as of right now, it's kind of what we like. So this is the temporary banner or the little icon you'll see on your home menu for Ikichan.
Oh, awesome.
When you boot up
For
Ikichan.
those just listening, it's a little pixel squid.
Yeah. Actually, I'll let you see the... hold on.
Oh, I can see me. I'm bald. I forgot. Ah. Oh, the little signature? Very nice.
So
is that new art?
This is all new art. This is actually you're the first seeing this in the world outside of our office, and it's like
awesome.
The screen is actually has depth. All right, so this is real simple.
For the podcast listeners, I just saw an awesome picture of a squid. Just imagine.
So this is the 3DS version, and this is the. You can see that.
Yeah. No offense, but the 3DS version is better. I was totally in love with the 3DS version of Cave Story. It looked crisper than the redrawn graphics somehow. I don't know how you pulled that off, but the redrawn graphics for Cave Story Plus and WiiWare are 4 times bigger than the original.
4 times bigger,
is
yeah.
That right? And yet you made that original art seem just as well defined somehow. It's like magic.
It's programmer magic.
Yeah, it's very impressive. What do you think of the kind of resentment, I guess that's the best word for it, that I've seen people launch at you on the internet? I've gotten very mad and stuck up for you because I get emotional about people that I think are doing great work, getting thrown under the bus, and I've seen people make terrible assumptions about how you treat Pixel, the creator of Cave Story, how you treat Nicalis, creator of Night Sky. They just, for some reason, assume that you're like trying to rip them off and treat them poorly, and I don't know why they want to assume that. It bums me out. What do you make of that kind of resentment you've received?
I don't know. The only thing, if I stepped back, the only thing I would think of, because I was at that point as a fan, is like it's easy to want to be indignant. You want to be mad at somebody, especially when you're at the computer. But the only thing I can think of is we've allowed Nicalis and Daisuke to go commercial with their games, and that could be perceived as a way of selling out. And the fans aren't going to want to be mad at Nicalis or Daisuke, so they probably put that angst at somebody, and that would be us, or me in this case.
That you're like un-indieing them and turning them into
maybe or taking advantage of them. It's something, maybe locking them in the closet, not letting them out unless it's for bathroom breaks.
Wouldn't they just Wouldn't they just not work with you if you were ripping them off? It's not like they couldn't just.
That's the funny part. They would not work with us, and because there's the internet, they would say we're not working together, or hey, this guy's a big jerk bag.
Yeah, but it's been the first Cave Story. You started working on that for WiiWare. What was it? 2007. I think the first time I played it was 2008 at E3. I think so. And you're still working with Pixel to this day. You're putting out Ikichan with them. You're working on stuff with them. You're doing something for Cave Story Plus on Steam as well, aren't you?
Yeah, we have a big semi-surprise. I guess it's probably about as surprising as an iPad Mini, but we're doing a Halloween update tomorrow to coincide with Steam's big Halloween sale. So every year, since we've released Cave Story Plus and the WiiWare version, and actually the DSi and 3DS version, if you boot up any of those right now, quote is the beta zombie quote with the red eyes. But tomorrow, everybody in Cave Story will have a costume.
Just like the Christmas thing you did? What was that?
Just like the Christmas thing, yeah.
Last year.
Just like last year,
Awesome.
just like the Christmas thing. And this one's full of small references and obvious references and Halloween references. And I'd love to just spoil all the characters that that we put in there. But I think I after seeing how much people love the Christmas update and they were so excited about it that we decided to do a Halloween one. And it'd be a shame to really spoil much of it.
But just tomorrow, starting tomorrow they can
Starting
check it
tomorrow,
out.
and I believe and running through Wednesday or Thursday, so they'll be able to see all the Halloween madness. I'll spoil one thing: the crystals turned into candy corn.
and did and it's not for any additional cost. It's not like you're buying an add-on.
No. You just update your file, and hopefully, if you don't have the game, maybe this will entice you to buy the game. It'll be on sale tomorrow for $6.66.
That's awesome. Steam is a wonderful marketplace. Marketplace. How much time and energy did it cost to redraw the game yet again for no additional cost?
A lot. We had there was about 3.5 of us on it working. Because we had someone come in and occasionally help us on the team. She'd do other stuff, but I'd say good. If we crunch it all together, maybe a month and a half. It's a lot of artwork in that game.
Wow.
So because it's if you just look at the sprite sheets or files, it's hundreds and hundreds of frames of animation.
And you had to do the old artwork and the new artwork too?
We didn't do the old artwork just because doing the old artwork, since it's a fourth of the size, you can't really get the amount of detail and really get the personality that we need for costumes and for this kind of seasonal effect. Sure. It's just not as much fun doing it on the small artwork.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to turn a cute little rabbit person into a zombie rabbit person when you just have a couple of dots to work with.
Have you been looking at my folders?
I haven't, but I have gotten to know you a little bit, and watching your work, I've gotten a little bit of an idea of how you think. At least I think so. And also, since the last time we've talked, you've announced that you're going to help publish an indie Japanese 2D fighting game. Is that right?
Yes.
That is what it's the amount that you've done to find small games from Japan that just don't have a voice in this country and barely have a voice in Japan, sadly, because as I've understood, the indie scene in Japan is much smaller than it is in Europe and the United States. And that you've reached out to these companies is I don't know why nobody else is doing it, but thank God you are, because these are games I would have never heard of if it weren't for you. But tell us about this fighting game, how you found it, what it's called, and what your plans are for it.
The Japanese name is Yatagaras, which it doesn't have a U.S. or English name, but it's a Japanese or Asian myth about an 8-span or 3-legged crow. So Yatta is, I believe, the kanji for 8, and Garas is the same kanji as Karas, which is raven. And it's a 2D fighting game, very similar to if you played Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, as a parry system, very fast gameplay. Some juggling, but not crazy like Marvel vs. Capcom or Guilty Gear or Blaze Blue. And designed by 3 guys, one programmer, 1 artist, and 1 game designer. All of them are ex-SNK guys who worked on King of Fighters.
Awesome. And the game's already out in Japan, is that right?
It's available in limited quantities in Japan. If you go to like a couple of sites online, it's available on disc. It's not available for download. It's available at a couple of stores through disc as well, but it's pretty limited supply. But the people who play it really like it. But as of right now, I don't think there's a way to, under normal means, to get it in the U.S.
Interesting. And how did you end up discovering this game?
I love fighting games, and I still play them probably predominantly. If I'm going to play something on my downtime that isn't a new game, I'll probably play an old fighting game. And I've been wanting to team up with somebody for a fighting game. And this really amazing, super talented team happened to have this game that was just sitting there stagnating in Japan. it's really really great. I mean,
did you just like stumble upon it in a store or something? How do you?
I stumbled upon it, I think, on the internet. I literally don't remember. I stumbled upon it on the internet. I saw a video, and I honestly thought it was an arcade game or some kind of commercial game because the level of polish and quality on the game is so insane, particularly when you consider it's only 3 people that worked on it. Like, if they had 2 more people, this thing would probably blow my head off entirely.
Yeah, the art alone, like, as much as I love Skullgirls, which is another game made by a small team, I think they outdid Skullgirls in terms of the actual art, and it was just one guy.
It's one guy. It's he's very, I would say he's famous among SNK and KOF fans. His name's Stylios, and he's just he's an amazing traditional artist, like a fine art artist.
Mm-hmm.
But his pixel art is just insane. He did all the character art.
How many characters are there?
8 characters and probably thousands and thousands of frames.
Yeah, just thinking about it is blowing my mind right now. And right now, you're planning on releasing it for the eShop?
For the eShop, right.
Right, and it is it's SNK style, so it's more of a 4-button fighter.
Right, so you have a hard strike, a light strike, a light kick, a hard kick, and then you do have a parry system, but instead of pushing down or forward, you push buttons. And at first that sounds weird to Street Fighter players, and then I explained to them that a forward and down parry system breaks characters like a Guile or a Remy, because it's unfair to charging characters because, hey, I want to parry you, but I lost my Sonic Boom, I lost my charge.
Right.
Whereas if you have them as buttons, you can still keep charging and you push the button. So I'm amazed and pretty surprised that to this point and day, nobody's really pointed that out in the high-level Street Fighter players, that how a parry system like that can really affect a charge character adversely. I'm
trying to think of a charge character who is a high tier in Third Strike. I can't think of one. It's just Remy and Oro, pretty much. Right. And Oro, I believe in the first version, was pretty good, but we don't know how good they would be if the parry system was different. Like how much that would change the dynamic of the game. Yeah. And what are the chances of you being able to put that game online? I'm sure that's something you've been asked a lot. I personally, I wouldn't expect you'd be able to. No offense, but the online, the cost to run servers and all that stuff, it's really expensive. But is there any chance you think you'd be able to get it running online? It's not so much the cost, because at this point we're running more about making the product as good as we can. But the issue is, and a few people at PAX asked me this same question, and I'll tell you the same thing I told them, which is we would do it, but we would probably end up actually going to the effort of trying to program it and make it work before we actually finish the game. Then we would decide if we would ship it or not with that online component, because if the online component is not good, through no fault of our own, let's say, we can't control your network connection or your ping, or if your brother's downloading porn, whatever it is. We have no control over that. You don't either, unfortunately. And because of that, let's say you have a shitty fighting experience online, who are you going to blame? You're not going to blame Verizon or AT&T. You're going to say, damn Nicalis, damn Nintendo, or this fighting game sucks. And what good is that? Like, it's no fun. So the sort of right now we're investigating if we can do good online comfortably. I think Street Fighter 4 was okay, but there was a lot of lag, and people use the lag to cheat on there, and on top of it has that shitty auto block system, which I hate. But that's besides the point. But we would probably try to at least do local multiplayer, so that if we were within vicinity, we could log into an ad hoc lobby and play together, because then you could still get the multiplayer experience, and for sure you won't really have any lag issues then. That's interesting. A lot of people in the smaller game, I guess I can call it indie game, but not all of them are indies. Some of them just work on smaller games for major publishers. They're saying online is getting kind of burnt out. People are getting a little bit tired of what that experience brings, and they're wanting more local online experiences lately. And enough people have 3DSs at this point that I could see people getting together to hang out socially and play with their 3DSs in tournaments locally on that game. But at the same token, people are such dummies, and they think if there's not those bullet points, then I'm not going to buy it. Yeah. And that's depressing. And you know that much better than I do because you actually have your livelihood writing on how people think and whether your games have the bullet points. And yet you seem to ignore that. That's how you seem from the outside. It seems like so often you just do what you're passionate about and not worry about. Like there was no, like we were saying before, there was not like a burning need for yet another cave story on the 3DS, but that's where your passion was, so you did it. Is that something you consciously think about? Like, do you try to reject any temptation you might have to follow profit trends and whatnot and just do what you want, or does that just come naturally to you?
I think we do collectively as a company. We do what we want. We have a lot of the same interests here. Everyone who works here, and we do pay attention to what's going on. For instance, I'll use going back to Nights. I'll use the iOS version as an example. It would have been ignorant and dumb not to allow swiping and tilting on there and just have a D-pad. That would have been the easy way out, and it would have been less than a month to port and publish the game on there. But that doesn't do a service to the iPhone, to the game, or to the people playing it. So there are certain things that we do have to pay attention to, but for the most part, you really have to tune out the noise of the internet because it's people saying a bunch of things and you don't know if it's true. It's easy to make a survey or some kind of poll online and say, hey, if I make this game, will you buy it? And you'll get 100,000 people to sign up and say, yeah, I'll buy it. And then maybe 1% of those people would buy it. So if you went by what the internet tells you, you might not be making the right decision. So we just go off of what we know, what we like, and hopefully it's right.
That makes sense. My headset keeps acting weird. Does my headset look weird?
No, it looks very futuristic.
Thanks. I was going for that kind of my prerogative look, Bobby Brown.
So you need. I guess my hair's closer to Bobby Brown right now.
Yeah, well, you have hair, so that puts you in the running, at least. Another thing I was going to ask you. Well, we should talk about Aban Hawkins soon because that's exciting. Yeah. I'm wearing the T-shirt.
I love that T-shirt.
You bought my soul with that.
That's right.
And you just need to send me some Mountain Dew and some Doritos, and
they're in the mail. I saved the time of you having to eat the Mountain Dew and the Doritos together, so I actually blended them together and froze it. So you're gonna get it's like a Mountain Dew Dorito shake. Gonna taste lovely.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know what color it would be.
Probably red. Yeah, I think maybe brown.
Orange with that green yellow. Yeah, maybe.
All colors come back to brown eventually.
That's right. It's just a curry.
I don't know if that's something you're interested in. I'm, of course, referring to the fact that this past week it's been interesting to be a member of the video game press because there was this explosion of, I don't want to call it paranoia, but there was like a lot of pent-up fear. I don't know what it was. Something, I don't know if you paid attention to this at all. I'll cut to the chase. People have been talking a lot about how they think the video game press is broken and that we're all kind of bought off by gentlemen such as yourself, and that the only reason I'm going to say nice things about Aban Hawkins isn't because I've already played it on Xbox Live and I love it and I know that it's going to be great on 3DS and Wii U as well. It's because you sent me this shirt, and because I have this shirt now I love the game. There's some people that are thinking along those lines, I guess, but I don't know if you've been following that, and if you have any opinion about that whole explosion.
I don't know. Before I start off in my tirade or rant, I'll just put it in perspective for anyone listening. Is like, would anyone listening let their soul be bought for a $25 shirt? Like, how ridiculous is that?
And why would I even like the shirt if I didn't like? Who wears T-shirts of games they don't even like? There was one guy. We reviewed Worms Revolution recently, and the guy was like, "Yeah, he just gave it a good score because he just wanted that sweet Worms swag." Like, who wants a Worms raincoat or gummy bears, whatever they make of worms? But anyway, I'm sorry. You were gonna talk about your thoughts on.
You need to send Jim to that guy's house and have him just
do Jim Sterling things.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. It's I could see the thinking behind it, but it's a little ridiculous in the traditional senses because I would say probably 98.9% plus an additional 2% of game editors become game editors and writers because they love the games, not because they think, hey, I'm going to get bought off by a bunch of free swag and trips and stuff like that. I mean, if you want to get bought off by free trips and first-class tickets, you'll probably go become an automotive writer, not a games writer.
Sure, or movies, or any number of things.
I think there's other industries. The game industry is you get in it. I got in it because I loved it and I loved games, and I'd be lying to say I don't have a stack of old free shit in my garage. That's amazing, but that's not why we did good or bad game reviews. It's based on the game. It's just too easy to be cynical now with the internet, and young people are just too ready to be cynical and angry if they're not in on a click, like if they're not a writer, or if they're not a moderator or a community manager, or if they're not part of a circle. It's so easy to complain and say, hey, the writers are bought off. If there are people who are bought off, it's based on the individual. It wouldn't be based as a collective as writers. I think it's incorrect and a stupid blanket statement to say, oh, all of you are bought off for X, Y, and Z reasons. It doesn't make logical sense why everyone would do that. And if that was the case, then there would be no bad game reviews, because companies with a lot of money make bad games. If you look at EA, if you look at Square Enix, Konami, if you look at they have big budgets and not all their games are 10. So if they have the money to buy you guys off, why are they getting anything less than a 9 or 10 out of everybody?
That logic of yours. Thank you for speaking it. If I say that stuff, people think, well, I'm just sticking up for the gaming press. And to be fair, there are a few people I know that have kind of gotten bought. They started off loving video games, but they kind of gave up on being able to make it in the industry, so they've just kind of sold their souls at this point. And they're not happy either. I feel badly for them, and I don't expect they'll stay in the industry for long. That's going to happen in any industry. There's going to be people whose ethics get worn away. Yeah, but
it happened
for the
with
most part.
Alex Pham of the LA Times did an expose years ago on game editors getting bought off.
Oh, right? Huh.
Yeah, I think probably 5 to 8 years ago she had done an expose on sort of the underbelly of business trips and free swag, and I think after that it kind of set off some kind of red alert for the publishers to reduce the amount of stuff they sent you guys. The stuff that game editors get now versus what I was getting, they would send us, if there was a racing game, we would go to a 3-day racing school at Laguna Seca or Infineon. And what did that have to do with a racing game, like to review a racing game? I mean, it's awesome for me that I got to go to a racetrack for 3 days, but you don't really see that kind of stuff. And reviews this is the other thing that fans and just fans of the game industry in general have to keep in mind. Reviews are such a small percentage of everything. Again, going back to the cynical factor, most of these guys don't even take the reviews seriously. I think that the ones complaining about stuff, they just want the news aggregated and they want the information. So why are they complaining about something they don't even take into consideration? Yeah.
People. There's no shortage of reviews. If you find a review that doesn't work for you or you don't trust it anyway, there's how many video game blogs now? 3,000, 4,000, something like that. It's an interesting world. But I don't blame people for being tired of the side of the video game industry that seems ingenuine. And that picture of Jeff Kiley, to me, that spoke to. Do you know the picture I'm talking about with him with Doritos and Mountain Dew and Halo 4?
No, I don't. But
You'll see it soon. Yeah.
Oh.
It's special. Yeah, it's going around. His face is basically like he looks like he's half in the bag. He looks comatose or at a funeral or something. And to me, it's
all I had to type in was Jeff Doritos on Google and
Yeah, that's right. To me, that picture speaks of the side of the industry that is so hungry not to make PR happy, but to make consumers happy and just to feed them junk. Because there's this idea in the gaming press that the consumers just want junk food games and junk food feelings and just feed them that. And PR be damned, it has nothing to do with it. They think that that's all that people want, and whether we want to talk about Halo 4 or not, nothing against Halo 4, but it is the 6th game in that series and the 4th game from this generation. It's nothing to get overly excited about, because it is just kind of selling Halo to Halo fans. But we have this pressure to feed people that, or else they're not going to pay attention to us unless we talk about the biggest and most marketed games. So it's actually the other way around. It's not that PR is buying us off. The readers are really who's in control. And if people didn't want to just read about Halo 4 all the time, we wouldn't write about it.
But someone like Jeff is probably closer to a businessman than a journalist, and I won't go back on saying this, because his job is to make sure the most amount of people know him.
Mm-hmm.
That's his job, because that's how he gets money. That's how he's got famous within the game industry. Outside the game industry, nobody would know who he is.
Sure.
But how do you do that? By covering Call of Duty, by covering Halo 4, by covering Metal Gear, and all the AAA games that I don't give a shit about.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives us this perception that he's important, and he's got a big camera in front of him, a big crew, so it allows him access to these games from companies who need this perceived coverage or popularity, because it's a lot of it's posturing. So, hey, big camera crew, get this guy in, get him what he needs. And it's a different side of the game industry, which I don't really miss on my end of what we do. We're so microscopic. We're like an amoeba compared to a Halo 4. I mean, it's ridiculous. So this is something that, fortunately for me, when you asked me, I didn't really know. I had read something on Twitter, somebody mentioning about not taking him seriously anymore, that I didn't know what that was in relation to. But like I said, it's like he's a businessman. He wants you to know who he is, because if he has X amount more followers on Facebook or Twitter, some guy at a publisher sees that, and then they're going to give him access to the game ahead of time so he can do a preview or interview, and then his network will get more advertising from that publisher inadvertently, because they want to keep feeding the people watching this show, hey, you saw this, now buy this game. And it's just, but it's not directly.
Oh no, did we lose Tyrone? He's getting slow. Are you fast again, Tyrone?
Beware. Best show ever.
Oh, what a strange tangent we're suddenly on. It's fun. Hopefully he'll come back, Tyrone. People may not know this, but Tyrone used to work in video game press as well. He wrote for Tips and Tricks and a few different magazines. He actually also named the Atlas puzzle game on the Super Nintendo. Pieces, it's called. He just was like, let's call it Pieces. And we did. Still have got to play the Pieces, personally. Well, Tyrone's not back. I feel like I have to make this fun somehow. Just me talking to you, the people.
Yeah, yeah, we're fun. We're fun people, Holmes.
You're pretty fun, Sinistar. Jonathan Blow asked for you to host the show.
Am I back?
You're back, Tyrone. I was just telling Sinistar that Jonathan Blow asked me to sit out and have Sinistar interview Dave Hellman, who is the artist on Braid, and the writer who's working on a comic book with him about how Legend of Zelda is boring now. They want Sinistar to host it. It's kind of, well, I don't really blame him. Sinistar's pretty awesome, but I was sad.
Beware. Poor judgment.
Oh, see, that's the kind of thing that makes them love you, Sinistar. And interestingly enough,
if it makes you sit out for Sinistar, then I'm going to say that you have to have Aban Hawkins interview John, because John, I think he really likes 1001 Spikes. He's actually on the beta, and his new Twitter icon is actually Aban Hawkins.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that because Jonathan Blow is kind of one of the things he's been known for lately for people who didn't even play Braid. He spoke out last year, I think, saying that Japanese game development as kind of a culture, the philosophy behind game development there is stuck and is hand-holding too much and doesn't respect the player all that much, which left me thinking, he maybe he's biased against the whole culture, and it ruffled my feathers a little bit. And then we talked about it on the show actually, and it went well. But I was really surprised, out of all people, to see him doing the Aban Hawkins thing, to have that as his Twitter icon, and now to hear that he's on the beta. I feel like he maybe just didn't know that there is a different kind of Japanese game development, smaller, tougher, weirder, that you've really tapped into, Tyrone.
I think he knows, but I think when he mentioned, and I can't speak for him, but from as an observer, to me, what I gleaned was that he was referencing mid and above game developers and publishers.
In general,
they're the ones kind of stuck in this weird limbo of making shitty games.
Yeah, and he spoke about Japanese games first, and then when people talked to him more about it, he said, well, actually, Western developers are doing it too. It's just kind of the larger budget, aiming to please everybody a little bit crowd instead of pleasing some people a lot, which is how video games used to be growing up. But anyway, Aban Hawkins. Am I saying that right? I always read it. I never actually say it out loud.
When I've read the katakana, I think it's Aban Hawkins. But
Aban Hawkins.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, that's Samusan, because he's
wearing a shirt.
He's sort of, there he is. You didn't die yet. Good job.
He starts with 1,001 lives. How did you end up talking to the guys at 8-Bits Fanatic who created the original game on Xbox indie games and talk about moving it forward to coming to the 3DS and the eShop on the Wii U?
We were at lunch in the conference room / living room in the office. Our conference room doesn't really look like a conference room. There's no table, just couches. And it's one of the few times that we actually turned on the Xbox and happened to go to indie games and we didn't actually see Thousand Spikes, we saw Temper of the Dead, which played it, and I really liked it, and which prompted us to end up downloading Thousand Spikes. And it just seemed so cute and pure and awesome, like an old NES game. Like there was no frills. It was intended to be really difficult, but not crazy. Well, it is crazy, but it was just this really, really cool game, and it was similar to how we've talked to Daisuke or other people. We just emailed him and felt out what kind of developer he was, if he's somebody that we wanted to work with. We met him in person in Japan, had dinner and talked about what we'd like to do. We both had similar, actually very, very similar ideologies and also the types of games we like and grew up with. Daisuke grew up playing a lot of Famicom, and Samu-san, who is, people who don't know, is the designer and creator of 1001 Spikes. He's also a huge Nintendo fan and grew up playing Famicom games. So he's like a encyclopedia for old Japanese Famicom games, and he still plays 3DS daily. He's got loves Monster Hunter on there. We go back and forth occasionally playing Street Fighter 4. He'll win some, I'll win some. So he's actually he's like an old school gamer and a modern gamer. So it's really rare to see that, but also cool to see somebody who's a game designer and a graphic designer / pixel artist, and also traditional artist. Very talented guy.
And what does he created the game, he did the art on the game and the design. Did he do the music as well, or does he have a team at all? Really?
Yeah. He's another one-man band.
Interesting. So many video games out there that are so awesome that you would never hear about if it weren't for people finding them, such as you did. I had played Temper of the Dead and really enjoyed it. But the Xbox Live indie games, it's for whatever reason, people just ignore the service. Kind of sadly what ended up happening with WiiWare over time.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing it's the way it's curated. People just came to have a unconscious idea that, I'm not going to find a game I want on there. There's so many good games on Xbox Live indie games and also on WiiWare. It's depressing. But you're bringing it forward to the 3DS and the Wii U. How's that development going?
Really well. Wii U, 3DS, we've been taking our time because we're adding multiplayer levels, actually new levels, new characters like Commander Video, and other main characters from our friends' games. So it's a very different game
from Dtoid. Dtoid? Yeah.
Sorry, right.
Yeah. He's behind me.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
He's hiding behind Balrog or M Bison, depending on what country you're in.
Yeah, that's right.
So we've been doing that. And we've also. Oh, you got Chun Li back there too.
Yeah. I got a whole gang. I got Shaolin Cowboy. I don't know if you've ever read that.
I have not, but that sounds pretty interesting. Is it like Cowboy Bebop for Chinese people?
It's the artist behind Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot. He also did designs on The Matrix. Drew a comic book about a Chinese cowboy, Shaolin Kung Fu. Anyway, I'm sorry, I totally derailed you. We also have to get to questions soon, but I wanted to hear the final answer on how development is going on Aban Hawkins.
Aban Hawkins. So right now, internally, we always just stick to 1001 spikes. That's kind of the the official name for the new version, whereas it's become a subtitle with the character's name but the Wii U's been going well, 3DS running on both. But the other reason we've been taking our time is that we've secretly been working on a PC version.
Really?
So we submitted it to Steam, and they suggested we set up a Greenlight page for it. So we're going to set up a Greenlight page for 1001 Spikes for Steam pretty soon. After coming back from PAX, it was probably 3 out of 4 people who played it like, oh, is this coming to Steam? Is this coming to Steam? They wanted it on Steam. So
Sure.
we kind of go where people want us to go. That's why you've seen us do a little bit of a variation on some of the games where we're putting them to, even though we're predominantly, as of right now, seems like a Nintendo system. So PC, we're also talking to Sony, considering it for Vita if people really want it there. So this one's not locked to just Nintendo consoles. It's if you want to play it on PC, you'll be able to, whether or not it's on Steam. But hopefully it will be, because then you can use your friends. You'll be able to have it on one hub, and you'll also be able to use the Steam achievements. And the Vita one will also look nice on there, just because you get the really beautiful, crisp HD screen, and it's nice and big, so it won't fit in your pocket.
So much work. That's your largest in terms of how many different consoles
Simultaneously, yeah.
Yeah. Yikes. What's the guess? You think sometime in 2013?
Yeah, we were originally wanting to do 12, but then we just went crazy by adding a ton of multiplayer levels. So now there's all these new single-screen multiplayer levels where you're trying to collect coins and kill each other. There's another mode where you're trying to climb this huge tower and save a maiden, and again, you're competing with other people. So if we hadn't gone crazy with those, we would have been able to easily release it right now. But at this point, we're kind of ignore people just bitching and complaining. It's like, if you don't want to play it, then don't play it. Like, stop bitching. Play something else while you wait.
Yeah, there's plenty. And also with the Wii U and 3DS, the holiday season's pretty crowded thus far, so it might make sense to wait anyway. Yeah. Can you give us a hint as to how many characters might be in there? How many you're planning right now?
Let's see. We've got, let's see. I wish you probably want to see my second and third screen, don't you?
Yeah, I want to see all the screens you have.
Where is it?
And Nikachan, you were showing us earlier. How long until that comes out, you think?
We'd like it out by December, actually. So that one's probably done within the next 3 or 4 weeks. We'll submit it within the next 3 or 4 weeks, and then it will be on. In the U.S., it'll be out hopefully before the end of the year. We don't know if it's going to come out in Europe yet, because we're going to actually charge. I think we're only charging $5 for it in the U.S.
Okay.
And it's pretty expensive to get the game rated by USK, OFLC, PEGI, so people kind of need to let us know if they really want it out there. Right now, it looks like we have about almost 15 characters.
What? I was expecting 6 or 7. I mean, the main game has Aban, and then there's that's his sister, right? Remember, a beautiful woman, an old man.
Yeah, and that's his dad.
Yeah, and so that's 3. So 12 more on top of the characters from the main game?
Right.
And Commander Video from Bit Trip, that's one.
That's one.
You didn't put me in there, did you?
I should put you in there. All right, you're already here.
You have my permission if you just want to, if you think bald guys in glasses, now I wear glasses, sadly, are marketable. Yeah, stick me right in there. That's very nice. We have tons of questions, though. I should get to them. I feel terrible What a weird show it's been. Technical problems, but so much great content from you, Tyrone. Thank you. I appreciate it. Vanoa asks, please ask about Cave Story figures, statues, whatever. I demand Cave Story merchandise, he says. Can it be done?
Yes, we have, I think he's talking about the voxel ones. We have a company looking at that, about getting it done. So it's out of our hands because we made the prototypes in 3D, and then we had them physically made in 3D, and then we handed them off to another company. So there's a company we're working with, and they are going to handle our merchandising for our T-shirts. And actually, hold on. You want Cave Story merchandise? There's this. I think you've seen this. You have one of these, right, Sean?
I have a shirt. All these shirts are way too tight. I got fat. Oh, yeah, that's an awesome shirt. It looks terrible on me, though, because the picture is right where my love handles are.
That's good. You make them. It's like a stereoscopic quote, then.
Yeah, that's right. I give them dimension and volume.
It's tagless, which I don't like tags. So.
Yeah, it's a very nice shirt.
So your friend, you can tell him that we're working on the voxel characters with another company that will make it for us, and then we have these shirts that we're eventually going to allow people to purchase.
And you were also at one point working on a non-voxel quote statue. Is that still coming along as well?
Those are all done now. They're sitting in a very safe place in Japan right now. So right now we're trying to figure out what we want to do with them. We have quote Curly, King, Misery, and Balrog. So Balrog's about, I think, this big.
That looks perfect.
I wonder if I have a picture. Let's
look around as I ask.
Let me see if I have a picture.
There's a leaderboard update for Cave Story Plus, asks Emayor555.
Yes, that's part of the update that's going live. Is not just a Halloween pack, but also, sorry, I'm not trying to be rude and not talk to you, but I'm trying to find this picture for you. There's a leaderboard, online leaderboard, so all the challenge modes now, like Nemesis Time Attack and Wind Fortress, Hell Time Attack, you'll actually be able to post times on Steam. But also, the new version also has Japanese language support. And we added one more level, which is a machine gun challenge.
No, you didn't.
Yes, we did. And the machine gun challenge should, if I remember correctly, should have Curly as the character you use.
That sounds so good. Like the Nemesis challenge for people that haven't played it.
So Balrog's not on here, but let me see if you can see. Oh, stupid freaking iPhone! I hate you.
For people who don't know, here, talk so people can see you.
Okay, so this is characters we had made.
Yes.
I don't know why I'm going like this. They're not actually in 3D.
That puppy is alone worth the price of purchase. But that king, that really captures his kind of brooding, semi-pathetic hero slash anti-hero. People who don't know, Cave Story is great. There's a cat, dog, rabbit man with a sword. Whoa, that Balrog takes the cake, though. Sold.
Yep,
beautiful
so
stuff.
Love teasing people. I know, drive them crazy, but
what a wonderfully visual show. I feel bad for the podcast people. Podcast people, I do recommend you just watch this on our YouTube after you've listened to it, because Tyrone showed off so much awesome stuff already. Thank you, Tyrone. Appreciate it.
No problem. So for the podcast people, how about this? Let's see. Yes. I'll play this. Podcast people, here. This is just for you. Creepy.
Is that the 666 remix of Cave Story? That's not Bushlands. Plantation.
Yes.
Plantation theme, yes.
Yeah, well, spoiler, but that's all right. It's just music.
Thank you for... Wow, you always make for such a good show. Thank you, Tyrone. Jim Heine asks, I feel like Nicalis would have much better support from Sony, Nintendo, and all in the 90s when companies were willing to take bigger risks on unique gaming experiences. Do you feel that the current climate in indie gaming, that products such as yours suffer because they're forced onto niche platforms like mobile and PC? Interesting. I do not see it that way at all, but I could see how if you look at what's marketed the most, you might see it that way. As Nintendo doesn't market stuff on their download services as much as their retail, but they've been very good, from what I can tell, to letting smaller developers onto the service for not a ton of money and to do what they want to do. But yeah, Tyrone, what's your take on that?
if you remove which they've done, you remove the barrier of entry, which is physical goods and having to deal with GameStop or Target, Best Buy, Kmart, Walmart, whoever. It'd be impossible, I think, for most developers now, even the wealthy ones like the Behemoth or a not Biohazard, but it would you wouldn't be able to do it because after you develop a game, you'd still have to spend $250,000 to $1 million to manufacture the game. If you were dealing with cartridges alone. Discs are a little bit cheaper, but I think in the 90s, I can see his point that there was less competition, and so because there was less competition, there was less things being tried. So you could try different things, like having a jigsaw game on the NES, and it would just sell because hey, there's not as many games coming out on this platform. There's not as many platforms. But now it's much easier for two guys to make a game in 18 months called Super Meat Boy and be self-sufficient off of it because it's a good game and not because they're limited by how much marketing money they do or don't have.
Yeah, that game marketed itself. I tend to think that if you give people what they want, if you find where the gaps are in the audience, gaps are in the market, and give the audience what they don't already have, like Super Meat Boy, there was no game like that on XBLA, and not really since, then it's going to blow up, and they're going to do well with zero marketing team. They did as well as they could. They made really cool comics, Edmund McMillan being a great artist.
Great T-shirts.
Yeah, they did, but they didn't push those on anybody. They just made them and said, if you like our stuff, then you'll like this comic and these shirts we made. So without forcing us and telling us what we should like, people just gravitated towards that game, as I hope they do to your games as well. They seem to have with Cave Story. Has Cave Story been relatively successful financially, or is it all just a labor of love? I think some money, I hope.
It's both. It's we can be somewhat self-sufficient, but it's not a breakaway hit because it's competing with a free version. So you're always going to get people saying, oh, well, why buy a game that I can get for free, and they download the free one. But that's also why we put so much effort into making all the new modes and making all the new artwork and the new music, so people can say, hey, if you really want to play this, go ahead and play the free one. We're happy that you're playing it because more people get to know about Cave Story. But at the same time, if you really like the game, then have a look at all these different versions that we put together for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Any chance, I ask you this every time I see you, at least I should ask you this every time I see you, any chance that there'll ever be more Cave Story, like a straight sequel or side story or something? Has there any been more talk about that?
That'd be up to Daisuke. And I'm all for it once it happens.
Do you think he's thinking about it? What do you think he's thinking?
I think right now he's thinking about his little mini Metroid game he's working on for iPhone. He's very focused on. He's got like a laser focus, and right now he's working on this really cute iPhone game that he's trying to.
Is that the Rockfish game?
No, I don't know if you mentioned this isn't Rockfish. It's a different game. So, and it may or may not be on his own blog, but he's working on this really cool, simple iPhone game that I think you're going to really like.
Yeah, Mini Metroid. That's there actually is a Mini Metroid game called Mini-Troid, which is awesome.
I would love to publish that one, but then I'd get sued into oblivion.
Yeah, that's too bad. Is there a reason? I wouldn't want that. Is there a reason you end up on Nintendo consoles more often than Sony and not at all on Microsoft consoles thus far? Is there a reason why that's kind of moved in that direction?
Microsoft has been traditionally the hardest to work with for developers, and I'm just frank about it. Sean Blow doesn't like work with them. The Super Meat Boy guys, I believe they've been very candid about their experience with them. So we just mitigate that by not having to deal with their exclusivity bullshit, like, oh, we want your game exclusive on our platform for a year, 6 months. When the time comes that we have a game that's appropriate for them, then I would like to work with them, but until that point, if they're going to exercise that kind of draconian mentality and use words like curating the platform and that they have the developer's best interest in mind, it's just not worth it for us. Sony, they've been really good. We're starting to sort of see what we can do with them. Cave Story seems the most appropriate for Nintendo platforms, and that's kind of why we've kept it on there. Nintendo's been really great to us, and also coincidentally, their platforms, digital platforms, have gotten better and better as far as sales and as far as helping promote the games versus WiiWare, which I've mentioned before, was sort of a blanket. Here's what's out. There was no feature system. It was just like, hey, this is what came out this week, newest games, and it really wasn't conducive to a market to promote the good games. It was just promoting whatever was out. So once you were done on your launch week, that was it. You wouldn't get any more WiiWare promotion.
Yeah, the WiiWare seemed like the Wild West. You could stake your claim, you could go out there. There wasn't anything holding you back from putting something on the console. I've always heard that Nintendo, they charge you a little bit for a development kit, and if you have an office, then you're done. You can just start making games for WiiWare. But once you got it out there, there was no way to show people what you had done, and then your game would get buried in new releases that weren't necessarily good games. From where I stand, Nintendo might have made WiiWare almost too easy to put games on because it drew a lot of people that just wanted a quick buck and put some games out there that made the whole service look bad. I'm still kind of depressed about WiiWare. Can you see? Not depressed. Yeah,
there's a good, like 24 good games on WiiWare, but they're all hidden away by all the shitty puzzle games.
yeah, I have probably 30 WiiWare games downloaded, 30 or 40, but there's thousands of games on the service, and every week still another game comes out, but it's just like car driving fast, or fall off the building, or punch the face, just like zero inspiration in those games because they saw the install base
or whatever.
You said it, not me. I'm not touching that one. And Breerbun asks, will Halloween Update be present on the 3DS eShop Cade Story?
No, we didn't have time to get it in, and it also goes back to the artwork, but we might, if people ask nicely and I'm being facetious, we'll probably do it. We're going to try to get in the Christmas update for the 3DS one. It's not in there right now.
Really?
Yeah. We'll try, but it's already November in my mind.
That's better than I would have expected because the 3DS version is already unique. The 3D display is enough, in my opinion, to warrant its existence. Plus, it has the bonus content from Cade Story Plus, but to even consider putting that Christmas update in there is awesome. I hope you can do it.
It's a lot of work, but it's fun. And people really like it, so it's why not?
Yeah, it must be tempting for you to just make stuff to make people happy all the time. That's how it sounds anyway. Tatami asks, should I assume Cade Story is never coming to the European DSiWare at this point? He's a European man.
Because assuming makes an ass out of you and me, right? Is that it? Cade Story 3DS is actually in submission right now for Europe.
Oh, but he meant the DSi one.
No, that one will also be in submission probably within the next week or two.
Oh, awesome.
They both still exist.
And can you explain to the Europeans, because I often explain to Europeans myself, I don't think he hates you because you live in Europe. It's not that. It's that there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen to bring a game out in Europe that's even more difficult than the United States. But I don't know if I'm right about that. Is that accurate? Is that why it sometimes takes longer?
You're right. You're totally right. ESRB, if you want to release something in the U.S., or I should say the Americas, you just get it rated by the ESRB and it's covered. And now ESRB not only they've made it even easier because you don't have to pay to get your game rated, and you can rate it on yourself, on your own, on their website, and you instantly get a rating. You don't have to send DVD, you don't have to send paperwork, you don't have to send anything anymore. So the ESRB has made the process incredibly easy for independent developers and publishers to put out download games. In the European market, you have to deal with if you want to release in Europe, you obviously have to get it rated by PEGI, which they rate the game so slowly it feels like they're going backwards. Then if you want to release it in Germany too, you have to get rated by USK, which they're pretty quick. Then if you want to also release your game in New Zealand and Australia, you have to get a third rating. All of these rating bodies are different people. They're in different time zones. You have to pay them, but also they're hard to get a hold of. They run at different times. Like I said, PEGI's typically the slowest one. And because of that, we have to adjust our priorities of what we need to work on. So we can finish a game, but if it's not rated, we are not allowed or sanctioned by Nintendo to release it. For instance, people don't know, to release a game in France, you are required by law to have a French language manual. The French love their language.
And you're not a huge team. You don't just have a Frenchman on hand you can throw $2,000 to and just write us a manual. That's a whole other thing outside of actual development that you have.
Now we use a localization company, but it's just layer upon layer of things that no one would consider to be game development. It's basically paperwork and no different than working for probably a cheese company or a paper company. It's all this stuff that has to get taken care of to get your product to market.
Yeah. And did you rate your own games on the ESRB? Is that what you said? You can just rate it?
You fill out a questionnaire and basically say, are there drugs? Or is there tobacco? Is there alcohol? Is there nudity? Is there cursing? What kind of cursing there is? Is there blood? Is there? It's a list. It's a very logical bullet point list of all the stuff in it. And as you answer it, then it'll produce a rating based on, for instance, if you put there was sexual content, you would probably get an AO rating.
But how about Curly's panties in a wall?
That's neither nudity. That's just clothing, right?
Sounds like it's fun to rate your own games. Do you get to write your own descriptions too?
No, that's what I'm gonna miss. I'm gonna miss those awesome descriptions, especially the ones for DOA beach volleyball.
Yeah, there's a lot of great descriptions. We in the press came to start looking for ESRB descriptions to actually find out content about the game, because the ESRB would find out about it before PR would even, or we would. Those are the days. Anyway, I should get to more questions. Feel bad. Bob the Cat Lowell asks, what do you think of Square Enix's above average pricing? I think I know what he means.
You mean like the $17.99? That doesn't bother me as much. If he's talking about iOS stuff, the price doesn't bother me. What bothers me is the greed to not make it a universal binary. If you're going to charge me that much, and you're going to make me buy it on iPhone and iPad separately, I better get something else beyond that. I mean, it should come with a soundtrack or something. It just don't make me buy the same game twice, because the truth is, it's like 20% more effort, or if at all, to make it a single file. It's more effort to make it two files. So they're just being greedy, and I hate it. I'm a huge Square Enix fan, play all the old stuff, but I had to choose when I bought The World Ends With You to buy it on the iPad or buy it on my iPhone. And I ended up I said, okay, I'll buy it on my iPad because it's a bigger screen. But I haven't been using my iPad lately. So it kind of sucks because I don't want to buy it again on my iPhone.
And how much was it? $15?
$18.
$18.
So $36.
Yeah.
If you want it twice. It's a terrible practice. They're punishing. They probably go to the same, I don't know, happy hours Capcom or something.
Well, I was gonna ask. It's strange to me that the Japanese game development world has been criticized really harshly by both the press and developers in the West and audience in the West for years now. And people have been speaking out and saying, actual game developers like Kojima and Inafune have said, oh, no, it's a huge problem, we're working on it. And then in like the past year, Square Enix and Capcom have done some of the worst stuff they've ever done in the history of it's like they're hearing the feedback and acting on it, but actually going in the opposite direction. It's so depressing. I feel like they're friends that I'm watching, like, be told you got to stop drinking, and they're like, oh, you mean stop drinking water? And then just grabbing a bottle of whiskey. Oh, fine then, I'll just chug this down. When you're telling them there is a problem and they're running away from the solution. It's very sad.
But this is the problem. We're to blame because we keep buying this shit. If we stop buying these games, and I hate to say it, but if people started one-starring, like, hey, if this isn't a universal binary, one-star it, what would happen? The sales would go down. So we're just condoning it by buying it. I condoned it by buying The World Ends With You. I'm as guilty as anybody else. So you have to speak with your money. That's the only companies understand.
Yeah, money. And we are so loyal. It's a weird culture, these video game people that we became. We love Resident Evil, so we buy Resident Evil 6 even after we read it got a 3.5 out of 10.
I heard when they were developing it, I thought they were going to, the code name was Resident Evil Sucks.
You and your jokes.
I like how intently you were listening. You're like, oh, this is going to be good. It's going to be a little...
Because I know you know people at various companies. You've been in this industry for how long now? 10 years, 15 years?
Since 92 or 93?
Weird. No, that's 20 years then. I was, when you disappeared for a little while, I told people that you named an Atlas game once.
Yes, Pieces, the little puzzle game.
Yeah, why'd you call it Pieces?
Because everybody was coming up with really overly complex games for puzzle game, and it's puzzle pieces, so we needed something that kind of stuck. And not everybody else liked it, so I'm like, let's call it Pieces. And
I like it a lot. I'd like to play some Pieces right now.
I'd like to eat some Reese's Pieces right now.
Me too. LaFay asks, do you fear modern games becoming too much like junk food, the way we're so easily accessible and relatively cheap, the age of digital download? Do you feel like people are putting the time in that the game deserves, or are they developing games for an ADD style of purchasing?
It's both. It's both. If you look at the iOS market in that generation, it's almost reverting back to the early 80s where it was a single mechanic game. That's why you're seeing so many games getting ripped off. Because if the gameplay and the mechanic is so simple, it's very easy to copy it. But on the other side, you're getting people making AAA games that are 60, 70, 80 hours, and I only want to play that game for 5 hours. So you're getting kind of both extremes, which is it's a bummer. Like the AAA games, I'm all for paying $60 for a 4 to 10 hour game, and probably closer to 4 hours, honestly. I mean, if we're willing to pay $13.50 for a shitty 3D movie, like what's so bad about paying $60 for 4 amazing hours? Because then you could get the same team, and instead of spending 5 years on the game, maybe they could spend 3 years or 2 years, give you a better experience that's much more polished, and get another game out sooner.
Right. I don't know if you played Liberation Maiden on the 3DS.
I unfortunately did.
Oh, what'd you think?
I did not like it. I don't know why I'm constantly looking down while I'm flying forward. It feels like somebody broke my neck. I'm a fan, big Panzer Dragoon fan, and it kind of missed it.
I have a weird feeling about it. I agree with everything you just said. I feel the same way. And yet I totally put up with it. Like, I first started playing the game and was just abjectly depressed. I'm like, this feels wrong. The controls are, you have to like move backwards and turn this way in order to, and the camera angle, I couldn't tell if I was getting hit or anything. And then I found a secret piece of cake in the mountains as a side mission. They're like, you need to go into the mountains right now, so Shoko or whatever her name is. She's like, okay. Then she goes and just shoots a mountain and a piece of cake comes out. And they're like, mission complete. And I'm like, I love this game now. I'm sorry, I can't do it. And I've replayed it like 5 times since then. There's games. Yeah, well, it's technically bad, but charming as hell. Games can get
Isn't this Suda too? Suda supposedly.
It's Suda. Yeah, he wrote it. And he didn't direct it though. He didn't do.
He had some intern make it or something.
And it's got some parts where you're shooting missiles and stuff.
I just don't like having to. That's why I didn't end up finishing Icarus, is because I don't like having to use the touchscreen in that manner, the way they have it set up. Like, I want to use a touchscreen. If I have to use a touchscreen, let me use it as a camera instead of as a cursor. And if I'm going to use a cursor, then just let me use the thumb slider.
Sure. Yeah, there's just letting us use a conventional aiming method would have made all the difference.
That would have changed. That would have been it.
Yeah, it's a kind of a missed opportunity, but maybe the sequel will be good. Damn asks, and this is something you may not want to answer, and if not, that's okay. He asks, how much does a rating typically cost? I'm assuming he means for not the ESRB.
So the ESRB one is free now. The rating goes from anywhere from high hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars. I don't know if we're under an NDA. I'm sure you can find that on the internet, but it's not cheap. Basically, it's sufficient that they add up that you actually have to consider it in part of the cost when you're saying, okay, am I going to sell enough? Am I going to sell enough units to pay for the rating alone?
Wow. That makes everyone complaining about the $100 fee for Steam Greenlight seem like ridiculous. Speaking of which, I read a little while ago that you help people with Steam Greenlight. Is that right? Did that ever happen?
We were offering people, if they needed help with the Greenlight, just let us know, and then we'll loan them the money, and then they don't have to pay it back.
So you just were giving hundreds of dollars away to strangers?
Yeah, well, they'd have to present the game. We weren't just going to like, hey, I have a puzzle game I want to do, and you make X's and O's, and you have to make 3 in a row, and then that's my game pitch. But yeah, if they had a game, it looked cool. There was no strings attached, and they didn't have any money. It was another way to see good games on there, or at least have the opportunity. I think people were making a big deal out of it because it's like, oh my gosh, Steam is charging $100. I can't get on there. People need to prioritize. I really believe when people say I don't have time for something, it's that they don't believe that that's worth their time. And if they don't have $100, generally that's true. But if we can help people get on there, then there's one less reason to complain about not getting a good game on Steam.
Did you actually give the $100 to anyone?
We got no requests, actually, believe it or not.
Really?
Very surprised.
Yeah, it goes to show that maybe people just did have the money, or maybe would you still do it now, or did you?
Yeah, we would still do it now. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's still a green light, still active. We weren't doing it as a marketing publicity promotion. It was. I think we had said we'd agreed to do up to 3 developers.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I read. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm surprised no one bid. So, which is totally fine.
I agree with you about that I don't have time thing. I never say that to people because it's just a lie. I do have time.
I don't make time.
Right. There's other stuff that I think is more important than you sometimes. People. Yes. I feel like a jerk. People don't want to say the truth, but I think it's more respectful to just say.
I think it's more respectful to be blunt.
Yeah, I agree. Shrimp Toast 2 says, Tyrone, are you playing anything that has really blown you away lately?
I was playing Monaco last night.
Oh, that's right.
Amazing. It's freaking awesome.
How are you playing Monaco? That's not out yet. Are you on the beta?
I pirated it. I went on. I pirated it.
I think we're going to be able to get the Monaco guys on the show maybe in December or January.
You should get Andy and Andy on there. You should get both because they have the same name, but they don't look alike at all.
Do they live near each other, do you know?
In San Diego, yeah. One's Caucasian and one's Asian. So you take the cock out of one and then you get the other one.
They made Monaco. What are you enjoying about Monaco?
It's amazing. It's like it's so much fun to play, and I'm big on not spoiling games. It's just this really great, pure game, and that's sort of my big buzzword now is like pure games because we're so distracted by all these things and this sensory overload of games now. And Monaco has beautiful graphics, beautiful sound, beautiful music, but it's so much fun to play, and it just goes back to stuff like Gauntlet, or you're talking about what we were talking about earlier, local multiplayer. This is kind of it, where you can get on one PC and get 4 controllers out, and you're trying to help each other, and you're yelling at each other, no, that door, or get this guy, or go hide, and it's just so much fun. And I really owe those guys some beers for getting me on the beta.
We can say what it is a little bit. It's a top-down heist game?
Top-down heist game, yeah. Top-down heist game. I believe it was an IGF winner, grand prize winner.
I think so.
For 2011, and it's just this really incredible game that it feels like an arcade game. Like it feels like it could have been in an upright arcade machine, and you'd be putting quarters in it.
Right, with 4 players all around. Yeah. Yeah, it is a wonderful game. I hope it's a big success.
So that I really like.
Yeah. Anything else?
Let's see, Marvel versus Capcom, or what is it? Marvel Origins? What is it called? It's that 2-pack game on PSN.
Marvel versus Capcom Origins, I think, which is Marvel versus Capcom 1 and Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter.
Yeah, two of my favorites. And I don't know how much you've played it, but you can add scan lines to it. You can add arcade viewing mode where it looks like you're looking at an arcade machine from the side. Whoever put it together really understood fighting games, but loved games. Capcom had, I think it was Backbone do Street Fighter HD remix years ago. And it was a really horrible remake because they made the art look like bad Flash.
And it's a terrible thing because I like the artists that they hired, but
not for that though.
Yeah, you can't take that style of art and combine it with the exact frames per animation that were in Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It looks broken. Yeah.
They needed 2 modes. They needed to have an original mode with chunky nearest neighbor pixel art. in HD. And then they needed to have their HD mode where they actually added frames and they made it really smooth. And that would have probably worked better. But the route they took was wrong. Whereas the group, which I think it was Iron Galaxy that did this new Origins game, they really focused on the game, making it feel good, the different modes, making it feel like an arcade game, and having achievements. Like there's almost like a ticker on the side of the screen where you have all these achievements you're trying to do, but it's not intrusive to the game, and you can actually turn it off.
Yeah, that was the same with Third Strike Online, I think.
Right, yeah. Third Strike was pretty good as well. And then I've been playing Lunar on iPhone.
Say that again?
And then I've been playing Lunar on iPhone.
Lunar, the RPG?
The old RPG, yeah.
Oh, neat. I just wrote an article about RPGs, and I think I annoyed people. I didn't even want to read the comments because I was sure people would get annoyed. Because I'm not even sure RPG sends a message. When you say RPG, I don't know what people are hearing anymore. Some people think, oh, RPG, like Mass Effect, I'm going to shoot some aliens. Yeah. Some people hear RPG, they think, oh, it's going to be like Final Fantasy, I'm going to walk straight and then have a cutscene. Or some people hear RPG and think, oh, it's going to be like the Dempa Man, I'm going to wander around in dungeons and fight little pig people. Have you played the Dempa Man, by the way?
I haven't, but I've been wanting to play it, especially that thing, I guess it did incredibly well in Japan. It has like 25,000 ratings in Japan.
I had no idea. That's exciting. It did all right here. It was number 2 on the eShop when it came out, I think.
Sorry, my phone just flashed at me.
No, that's all right. Yeah, it's you know Japanese culture pretty well. Whoa. You and Johnny Holmes look. Oh, that's Kevin Cassidy from Go Nintendo. That's fun to be watching us. Yeah. Dumpaman, yes. You know Japanese culture right now. There's like a big thing with like kind of cute, ugly, weird people and unitards, like little dwarf men. It's basically actually, I have one right here. Have you seen this guy?
That's really... I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep now, but what...
Yeah, Linsbot gave me that.
Wow.
People. He's holding a fish. This is like really hot in Japan right now. Here it's all about like Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed. In Japan it's dwarfs and unitards holding fish. And Dempamen takes that concept and runs with it pretty well. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Is it like an adventure RPG? Is it like a...
It's a real Dragon Quest like, except you have a party of 8, but each guy in the party only gets one move. So you kind of have to coordinate them like it was one character. Yeah, pretty neat. Anyway.
You said about RPGs, though, one point, I absolutely agree with you, because the only sub-term to RPG that really strikes a chord with me where I know what you're talking about is if you say Japanese RPG. Or then I think of 2D RPGs, or just that traditional system for characters and the leveling system where it's a little bit more traditional, where it hasn't changed much, aside from something bad like Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah, but that's the highest profile one. It's hard for me. On one end, you have Dragon Quest, which is a very, very different experience than Final Fantasy 13, and then in between you have the Tales series and the Shining series and stuff like that. That's my idea of JRPG, like pure. But anywho, semantics. People get awfully annoyed when I talk about them. Temple of Doom asks, if you want to start a new indie game development company, which city do you think is the friendliest business culture to do so?
I would think you wouldn't want to think which was the friendliest for business culture. I would think you would want to find which is the cheapest. Which is the cheapest to live, so that you can comfortably make your game or do what you need to do in the time that you need without having to worry about how to pay your rent or how to eat. For instance, if you're not already in California, I would avoid California. It's an expensive state. Avoid New York. Just avoid the obvious ones. If you're going to be independent, Boston's expensive. Just the really obvious states that you want to avoid. You want to Illinois. You want to just stay anywhere where basically the median income is pretty high, because the cost of living is going to be so high. If it's an issue, if you're thinking about doing for hire development, it's also irrelevant, because you're not a retail business, so you don't need to see your customers face to face. The money you save in living in a cheaper place, in a cheaper state or city, you can fly to Nintendo or Sony or Microsoft or whatever publisher you're pitching on your game. So I think you should focus more on trying to keep your costs down regardless of where you're at.
Perfect sense. Thank you for the logic again, Tyrone. It's always refreshing. There's two questions. Oh, we have to finish the show, though. We started late, but we're already over by a lot. There's someone asked a really great question. Maybe we can answer it real quickly.
Okay.
He asked if it's hard to put games on Nintendo consoles. This is HD Hurricane. Asked, is it hard to put games on Nintendo consoles, not in terms of working with the company, but in competing with their games? Does that ever seem daunting to you to know you're going against the most successful video game developer in the world?
We try to ignore it. It's if I do think about it, yeah, it's scary when you're like, hey, I'm right next to Super Mario Brothers, but you just have to do your best and keep going, and hopefully it does all right.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I was going to ask, are there any more projects you're working on? Not like you're in need of more projects, but having watched your career as I have, it seems like you often have something secret going on, even when it seems like it couldn't be possible because you're working on 5 games at once. Then you're like, oh yeah, and I'm also doing the 6th thing. Don't kill anybody. Is there anything else we can think about, imagine that you might be working on?
We're planning, and we already have some ideas of what we're doing for 2013. And then for Japan, we're going to be working with a company that will be publishing all our games for Japan. So anybody who wants to get Cave Story on the eShop or Ikachan or VVVVV or Night Sky, they'll be able to.
Oh, that reminds me. Is there any way you could convince Terry Kavanaugh to put Super Hexagon and maybe a couple of his other games on the eShop? I want more people to play that stuff.
I want everybody who's listening to us and watching us right now to go to his website right now and tell him to do that. And
that would be great. Yeah, if you put Don't Look Back and Super Hexagon and maybe one other game together.
I love Super Hexagon. Yeah, Super Hexagon would be awesome on 3DS.
Yeah, the depth of field and all that stuff. That would be super fun. Well, I guess that's it for our show.
Go ask him right now.
Yeah, yeah, bug him. I asked him to be on the show, but he was too shy.
He's a very shy
polite
guy.
About it too. Yeah,
Very
what a nice person, though. He's easy to care about. I want him to win at life. Tyrone, is there anything you want people to know before we wrap up? Like following you on Twitter or your blog or your video games or anything?
You can follow me on Twitter, Tyrone Rodriguez. I'm very boring, and I usually say what I'm playing or what I'm eating or what I'm doing. It's not very exciting. I'm a very boring person. Send us emails if you want to say hello. We actually respond on our Twitter if you actually want to talk directly to one of us at Nicalis. So we'll actually respond to people if you're not rude. And thank you all for watching and for playing the games, and keep playing more games, and play Monaco once it's out so we can all play together. I really love it.
That was awesome. You're not boring. You tweet tons of interesting opinions and facts and ideas. I love following you on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter if you want, @TronKnots. I'm playing Mario Sticker
Sunshine.
Star right now. I'm tweeting about that every once in a while. Pretty interesting game, actually. Yeah, it's better than I thought it was going to be. And the show is on iTunes. You can,
Ooh.
yeah, we're on iTunes, which is neat. You can listen to all of our old shows or subscribe to us on iTunes. And of course, we're on Twitch TV every Sunday. So tune back in. Next week, we're having the writer or the story director of Zombie U on, Gabrielle something. I have to do my research on her, but she's super nice, so that'll be fun.
Ooh.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Tyrone.
Thank you. I'm going to give you some codes for Night Sky eShop so you can give away after the show.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, thanks. I'll totally do that.
All right.
Thanks, Tyrone. You're the very best. Like,
Thanks, everybody.
Is. Yeah, that's true. Bye.
Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. Sup, Holmes?